Now I'm going to talk about points over a path, and I'm going to go ahead and use this particular drawing that has a building with some site plan inside of it. And I'm going to concentrate on just doing a points over a path, and I'm going to use this area here. We have some curb, and we're going to do a straight line, and then we're going to do an arc segment as well. Um, so under the Trimble Field Points tab, we go over to the Field Points panel, and we select Place Points over Path. In the dialog box that appears, we first want to select the entity that we're going to place the points over. You see that we can select an arc, line, polyline, or a spline, and it only allows us to select only one entity at a time. So if you try to do a crossing window or anything like that, it doesn't select multiple objects. So we're going to start with the line first. And then when we have the line, then it gives us the option as to decide what is the category. So I'm going to go ahead and select square X circle. And then for the description, I'm going to go ahead and call it curve points. Layer, I don't have a particular layer set up for the field point, so I'm going to go ahead and put them on layer 0. I'm not going to play any annotations. I can go ahead and specify automatic if I wanted to. Then I go ahead and decide what are my starting point, or what is my prefix and suffix are going to be. And then what is the object snap elevation or the placement setting for this point. The main portion that we want to focus on in this area is the placement options. So for placement options, we have a couple of different tools. We have 3 different options in here. So we have along, entity, path, we have as segment, endpoint, and offset from path. So we'll start with the first one, which is along entity path. And we're going to specify the distance or the spacing between points, and I'll go ahead and set it at every 3 feet. And then if we want to go ahead and specify an offset from the starting point, we can enter that value here. We'll come back and do the other 2 in a moment. Within the entity path, we have this option here. It says use minimum distance. So if you want to keep a minimum point set up, then we can go ahead and specify, let's say that we want a minimum of 1 foot towards the end of that. We can go ahead and specify that. That way, when we get to the very end, we don't have a point less than a foot apart from each other. So we have that option in there if we wanted to go ahead and use that option. So the last part on here is the attribute data. So if you have any custom data in there you want to put in there, you can go ahead and do that there. All right, so once we selected the entity, we select the settings. We want to go ahead and hit place. And we want to go ahead and pick a starting point. So I'll go ahead and pick my starting point here. And you see that it'll go ahead and create a point 3 feet. And then the last one here is a minimum of 1 foot apart. So we can go back and delete any point that we don't want. If we want to go ahead and delete this, we can. If maybe that's just too close and we don't want to set that, we can go ahead and delete or undo. Now that command will actually put a point at the start and at the end of the entity. So I'm going to do it one more time, and I'm going to go ahead and do the arc. But since I already have a point on the arc to start off with, I want to make sure that it does not do that. So I'm going to select the command again. And in this case here, I'm going to actually start the offset point. So on the curve, or on the curve itself, I'm going to do every 2 feet. And then I'm going to make sure that it offsets 2 feet from the start. I'm going to remove the minimum from it. So it will start at the end point, but the first point is going to be 2 feet from the start. I'm going to select my entity. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit place. Hit the starting point. And there are my 2 feet on center points all the way to the end. So that covers the first part of place points over path. Let's take a look at another option. So let's say, for instance, that I wanted to maybe offset the points. Maybe I don't want them to be on the line. I need to make them offset somewhat. So when we look at place points over path, we can go ahead and use a third option, which is offset from path if we need to. If we just want points at segment endpoints, we can go ahead and select that and say, well, we'll use that option and remove the other one. So we say add segment points, and we'll go ahead and select entity here. And I'm going to say, let's go ahead and put it on this point here and hit place. So it does one at the very end, the very start, and at the very end, we don't have to select the starting point in that regard. Now to do the last option, which is the offset, we'll go ahead and check that option and uncheck the other one. In this scenario, it it still needs an option to do interval points. So we want to make sure that we specify the spacing between the points. So we're going to put 0 for offset, and then I'm going to go ahead and put 3 feet over here on the spacing between points. The offset distance from my line, I'm going to go ahead and put it to be 1 foot. Okay. So I got a 1 foot offset, and the interval points will be 3 feet on center. I want to select my entity. I'm going to go ahead and select this outside line here. And I should go ahead and do an offset here just to make sure that it doesn't do that first point that I'm going to pick. So now the next thing I need to do is specify the point. I'm going to go ahead and specify where I'm going to start. So I'm going to start over here. And then the last option is on which side of the line do I want to do the offset to. So now I have to pick a side to do the offset of the points. So go on this side here. And now we'll see that we have two that are close together. So I can go ahead and delete that 1 point that's there. Okay.